Find your purpose, your true purpose. You are here for greater things than that which you have been programmed to believe.
Remove the veil, eliminate the lies. You are worth more and are very much alive. You are more than your clothes and the car you drive.
Stop living in the program that tunes you into that hive mind.
Join us daily on Real Talk with the Cummings.
We are truth seekers and tellers.
And your advocates for free speech.
Well, hey, it's been quite a while.
It has been since we've ever done like this full-on open.
I know. I was like trying to like remember how everything works, and it's I've got a little bit rusty, but
thank you for the grand piano, by the way.
Oh, I know.
Really appreciate that.
This little background thing, which they didn't have before on StreamYard,
No,
so that's
it's
new.
Definitely new.
Yeah.
Looks like we've really upped our game there with our plays.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah,
I wish
doesn't
I
it?
could really see it.
Yeah.
Other than that blank
Yeah.
wall.
But anyway, guys, thank you for those of you that are planning to join us. We do this live thing. Actually, let me go here so I could see what the actual. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to go here and see if there's any live chats. Let me go here. Let me make sure to bring this down so we could answer any questions. This is the time to actually, do your thing, and as we try to do our thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of feels a little weird, doing
It
the whole,
is.
but it's, I make videos, but they're like short little things in the morning, speak my mind, and all that good stuff, but it's been quite a while. We don't know how things are looking or sounding. It looks like it looks pretty good. It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Looks good.
crisp. Compliments of our good internet service that we have. Oh, look how quickly I picked up the phone and there
Wow.
it is. Yeah. Pretty nice. And hopefully it sounds good. We're using our Samsung.
We're using the old kit.
The old kit, I know. The old
Complete
camera.
with the tripod, the old
and-
camera.
Yeah, this is pretty
Feels
cool.
like old times.
It does. Yeah, it really does.
We used to do. How many times did we do the show? Like when you and I did it.
Oh, I think it was twice a week we used to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
Not quite the Daily Show. Like
the way that I would. But then even last year, was it? I was only doing it twice a week also.
Oh,
For a while there, back in 2019 is when I did it daily.
right.
It's a jobber.
Like a morning.
A
and
morning
an
and
evening?
sometimes an evening one. Yeah. It's been a lot of time and effort on doing this. But,
You must have a lot on your mind.
oh gosh, there's so much stuff going on in the world right now that it's crazy, really, really crazy. And, I know that there's a lot of people that think a certain way, and then there's another group of people that thinks another way. There's a lot of division
Right.
in the world. And I think it's by design.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Well, it's like it's something that they want you to fight and to find a reason to disagree with the other person because, when you are in disagreement, it allows for things to get fractured, and fractures, division, cause more animosity between parties, and then people are fighting, and then next thing you know, you have to have somebody to, wrangle everybody together and tell them to stop fighting. It's crazy.
Yeah, but my old conspiracy mind, and I know that a lot of people still don't believe that conspiracy didn't come to be a word for no reason. There's a reason behind it, and a lot of people look at that as conspiracy theory means there's a lie, and it doesn't. Conspiracy means that there were a group of individuals conspiring to do something, and there was a theory based on those individuals trying to do whatever it is that they're doing. And this, as we've been listening to a lot of documentaries and learning a lot of things, which this show is not about. I'm hoping that we're able to do this maybe every every Sunday and speak our minds about certain issues and spirituality and stuff like that, that things that matter,
Yeah.
and again, everyone's entitled to their opinion. We're not trying to tell you how to think, God forbid. Just putting our 2 cents in and what we feel, you know.
And I mean, we personally don't agree on certain issues
Right.
together. I mean, as a couple, we have different opinions, and we may have differing opinions about the topic that we're going to be pursuing and trying to, I don't know, bring more insight
Hmm.
as a couple that's trans. You know,
Hmm.
that we could bring a little bit more insight into what is actually happening and where we see things and what we see really happening in this situation. And
Definitely.
no matter what opinion and what side of the fence you might be on this issue, I just think that the open forum of exchange of ideas is a good thing.
It's
You
important.
know,
I mean, that's what has made humanity evolve and grow, is being able to have discussions, debates, without wanting to hurt the other party or silence the other party, which is something that's very common this day and age.
and I want to, kind of be careful to not be critical in the sense of just being mean spirited,
Right.
but actually bringing into focus what the issue is, what's happening, how we feel about it,
Mm-hmm.
how we personally are, seeing things. And it may not be your point of view. It might not be, the point of view of someone else that might be watching, you know.
Exactly. And what I've seen is that these political groups, and we were talking about this while we went walking this morning, that a lot of political groups latch on to these topics to push their political agenda to get money from this and kind of rile people up.
Yeah, I mean, that's the important thing is that they find an issue that they can latch onto so that they can get their uh, agendas out there, their uh, legal opinions and philosophies out there to be able to influence
Exactly.
those that they want to influence.
And it's very common. We see it in all the aspects of all the problems and situations that we're seeing in the world today. And if you look outside your window, there's a lot of stuff going on.
There's a lot of things that we can't say now in 2015 that we could say.
2020.
I mean, back in 2015 that we could say that we can't say in 2022.
Yeah.
We have to like really watch our P's and Q's literally to be able to, even allow this type of broadcast to air because algorithm is getting smarter and catching on to different keywords and things like that. So certain things that you can't even pronounce
And
anymore.
people need to really think about that we're living in the United States of America, which was founded on the home of the free, home of the brave. Many people left their country. I left my country of Cuba because it was a communist country, or is a communist country, and you can't say whatever you want or you get jailed or possibly even killed, but we in this beautiful country that has given lots of opportunity to a lot of people are seeing a massive change in that type of setting. It's no longer the free speech that our so called founding fathers gave us. They fought for that to take place. We have to really be careful what we say now. And that is crazy to me, especially coming from a country that's communist.
And the fact is that yesterday's conspiracy theory
Mm-hmm.
is today's fact.
Exactly.
So things that have been labeled as, you know, uh, dismiss information or whatever,
Yeah.
they use all these different words to
Verbiages, yeah.
describe things. And it's only done in order to distract and to fool people into thinking a certain way.
Exactly. And I don't know about you, but I would not want to live in a place that doesn't allow you to speak your mind, worrying about a small group of individuals or a small minority and their well being while disregarding the well being of a bigger majority. And, in saying that, it doesn't mean that we don't have to be compassionate and we shouldn't care about people's feelings, because it's important to care about people's feelings. But when feelings take over biology, when feelings take over important things or more important things, then we're in trouble, because then the small group dominates the whole, the whole nation, the whole world, the whole status quo, and that could be very dangerous.
It really can be, and it's becoming a bigger issue now because it's been so politicized and it's been so thrust in the face. Like the quote unquote woke crowd is now saying things that are going to get people on the other side of the fence really riled up. And one of these issues, obviously, if you've ever been following us for any amount of time, we're both of a trans history. We both transitioned back when, and we both have strong opinions regarding transition and kids and puberty blockers and transitioning. What does that mean for athletic competition? What does that mean for infringing on the rights of other people that deserve to have their lives not affected
Mm-hmm.
by the lives of a few. You know,
Exactly, and that's when somebody's right interferes with somebody else's right. That's a problem. That's a total problem. And the AC just kicked in, so we're gonna be hearing a little bit of a sound change.
but
I
it feels
apologize.
so good.
I know, right? So let's get into it. Let's talk about. I guess let's first talk about. Um, Actually, you just boy, that was like
Wow,
quick. That was only
not
like
much to cool down.
yeah, that didn't take much to cool down. Let's talk about, because you mentioned puberty blocker. I'm going to go here and I'm going to um, open up my Facebook page because I shared there was a information regarding Sweden had rough translation of news out of Sweden regarding children harmed by puberty blocker. So this particular clinic in Sweden that was administering blockers to children have now come out and said that they were in the wrong and that they actually um, need to like take care of these kids who are dealing with osteoporosis, bone damage, a slew of different problems due to hormonal blocking
And
medication.
it really shouldn't come as a surprise because when we were doing some of those earlier podcasts in 2015 talking about the dangers, and there was a specific PBS hour long special on trans called Growing Up Trans, I
Yes.
guess.
Mhm.
And I think it was um, Garofalo or something
Mhm.
from the Lurie Children's Clinic in Chicago. There was a scene in there where he was talking to the family of a trans identified male person,
Mhm.
a trans male going through the potential of getting testosterone and stuff. They were talking. Dr. Garofalo was talking to the parents and to the student. I mean, to the young trans guy, and saying, "Look, we don't know what is going to happen. You guys are the testing board for all of this, and it's because of you that we're going to be able to find out whether it's going to be damaging and you're brave and all
Exactly.
these things." And now we're finding out
Yeah. It's like
that
this particular Leo was injured in trans care, and now the hospital has reported itself. The mother says, "I'm happy and relieved that the care now acknowledges that they have done wrong," and goes
that's the
on.
Karolinska Hospital
Yeah, yeah.
that was really famous.
Famous, and it's like they were doing promoting and administering blockers and harming, now realizing how much harm they've actually caused. Only after 4.5 years, when Leo finally complained daily of pain, was the skeleton checked. At the time, no checks were being done. Um, During the years he was treated with to stop his normal hormone production. See, we may believe something deeply in our hearts and we may have dysphoria, but biology still goes on. And so the body has to deal with what it's being done to it. And when you're blocking your natural hormone production, bad things will happen. That's how the body works. It doesn't matter what we feel inside, how much we want something. The body will go against your feelings because the body doesn't care about feelings. The body only cares about science, physical, and mental balances,
Well,
right?
it's like the body doesn't see that you had that moment where you realized that you were not able to identify with your body. Your
Mm-hmm.
body fully identifies with
So,
itself, and
yeah,
it's marching in the direction of what it has by the thousands of years of its own evolution and its own like biological memory of what it is in the DNA
right.
that tells it what to do.
Exactly.
It doesn't, it's not listening to you talk about
Yeah,
how
how
you
you
don't feel
feel, how you
comfortable.
don't like certain things because of whatever reason, right? So in November last year, Updrag's review revealed that Leo and at least 12 other children had side effects and were injured by the hormone treatments in trans care, at that hospital, at the Karolinska University Hospital. So after that report, the hospital has made its own investigation, and they now state that he and other children have been exposed to the risk of quote unquote serious care injury and that there is a continued risk of incorrect treatment. So, what is this going to mean for the thousands? Because now we could say there's thousands of individuals, young children, being treated and administered blockers and all sorts of different things to align so-called the brain and the body, which you all know how I feel about that. I don't think that we're born wrong, that we have traumas, that things lead us to the point that we feel discomfort, that we feel pain, that we want to correct it for whatever reason. It's one thing. But the body is not, there's nothing wrong with our biology. That's my opinion, right? Um, so let's see here. I just lost my place. So in the report, the hospital states that they have not had any routines for checking bone density, and the family has not received sufficient and clear information about known side effects of the treatment. So now they're trying to make it right, and they're trying to figure out, what to do, what's going to happen next. In addition, the hospital writes that it's clear that the diagnosis of gender dysphoria is not static and that it happens that patients no longer want to undergo gender correction after the stop of hormones have been released. So, the thing where they say, well, the kids know best, and it's like they don't. They really don't. Your brain is not fully developed till they say 21, I believe older. And so you can't make these permanent decisions because they are permanent.
The prefrontal cortex is that part of the brain that evaluates risk. And one of the risks that, these young trans kids are superseding is the potential of absolutely being unable to have children,
Exactly.
and as a 15-year-old trans guy that has been watching anime and watching, videos and TikToks now, and all that about transition. And they're sitting there and they're just getting all this information into their brain. And it's becoming like this overwhelming, mounting, like snowball of like, yeah, yeah, this is why I should do it. This is why I should do it. Their prefrontal cortex has not been developed. So it doesn't know, hasn't got the ability
Mm-hmm.
to relegate what is risky behavior
Mm-hmm.
and what isn't.
Exactly.
That's why, insurance companies in the past wouldn't rent a car to anyone under 25.
Mm-hmm.
They refused because they knew that at some point after, 20, that prefrontal cortex starts to really
Yeah.
cement itself, and here we are telling doctors literally speaking against what biology says is true,
Right.
is that prefrontal cortex
Exactly.
hasn't been developed yet.
And then, in the investigation, the doctor writes that Leo should not have received the treatment from the beginning because they did not take into account psychiatric problems, which a very large majority, if not most of them, of us all, have some sort of mental issue caused by some sort of trauma. So we engage in well, it's because we're trans and this is why we have this. No, it's like that saying, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So they did not take into account psychiatric problems, suicide attempts, and that he himself expressed hesitation. So I don't know. We really have to be very careful. You
So I
know,
mean, if he experienced hesitation, that is a really great red flag to present to a doctor for them to see hesitation and to go, wait a minute, there isn't any persistent, insistent,
no, but even
whatever.
there were like 12 others, and even like is that when you're a kid, you're kind of like yeah, you're agreeable, and then you're kind of like, well, I don't know how is this going to change, and you see it in a lot of the younger trans wannabe. At one point, what was that legal case that the mother and the father were fighting, and the mother says the boy was presenting as a girl, and with the father he was presenting differently. Kids are
He's
not
like,
ever
he
going to
was
be
like, mommy wants me to be a
girl.
girl,
Yeah, and
so
I think that's the key there. That kids take cue from the parents. A lot of these parents don't want to have a feminine boy or a very masculine girl. So now they see this as the thing, and it's like, yeah, well, maybe our kid's trans. And they figure, well, hey, Jazz had a series for almost 7 years. We could be the next Jazz Jennings sensation, because that's the mentality, unfortunately. And we're seeing it. People want to be famous. They want to have tons of likes on Facebook and Instagram, and it's becoming a thing.
yeah, and that concept of like puberty blockers being some great successful story, I don't think that's really played out very well, because what puberty blockers do is not just suppress your maturity of your physical secondary sex characteristics, but it also disables the ability for the brain to mature, for emotional activity to mature.
Exactly.
These
There's
are issues that if you watched, the famous trans kid who has a TV show on Lifetime or whatever it is on TLC, then you will see that it really doesn't speak well to what puberty blockers have done for that said individual,
exactly.
because they still have real issues, and they have nothing to do with being trans. It's everything to do with maturity and the ability to be a good judge of making decisions, and having that ability.
What I find in this day and age, and I don't know if it's the fault of technology, mothers being pregnant, exposed to computers and smartphones and things of that nature, that we're seeing a lot of people with neurological impairment. I mean, this
Oh
is
yeah.
it's almost like an epidemic where you see teenagers or kids and some young adults can't function like other people. Their nervous system has been hampered, and they can't speak well. They can't give you eye contact. There's a study a while back that showed that a lot of individuals that I identify into the trans umbrella suffer from some form of Asperger. There's a large majority of trans people that aren't neurologically like other people. And so that automatically makes us believe that we're born wrong, something's wrong with our bodies. Because if you think about it, the body is okay. It's functioning gonads, everything's functioning. What doesn't function is the ability of you seeing yourself the way you want to be seen. And that could be for various reasons. And I've spoken about that in the past. I believe, molestation in your childhood years, being jealous of your sibling, wanting to be treated like your sibling. There's many different things, in my opinion, that I believe that really contributes to this. You
Well, I
know,
mean, transitioning has been promoted as kind of like the catch-all for every psychological issue that arises within young people.
mm-hmm.
That that maybe they could trace that to gender incongruity. Maybe they could trace that to not being comfortable with their body. And then,
Exactly.
you know, the poor kid is being corralled into this type of thinking by a doctor or by a psychotherapist or somebody counselor at school. And these are things that are going under the radar, and parents aren't being informed of it. Parents aren't being told. We were just watching an interview that former newscaster Megan Kelly did with some other podcaster, talking about how her kid was being exposed to trans ideology, and they took time for her 6 year old to learn about that. If at any time in the future that they weren't content being a boy, that they could be a girl, and they could go and get their hoo-ha, whatever thing cut off and stuff, and become a woman if they wanted to, and that was okay. And they she wondered who had told her 6 year old this
Right.
in the state of New York at a private boys' school. And the instructor, the teacher called her and said, I was the one that told him.
Yeah.
And it's like, she's like, who gave you the right
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do such a thing?
Yeah, it's crazy. Hey, Delaney, thank you for joining us. So, she just wrote, I don't know if you read it, high vibes and cosmic hugs to you
Nice.
in chat.
Hi, Delaney.
Yeah, so that brings us into this bill that everyone is having a conniption fit over and actually lying about.
Well, again, this is what political
Yes.
footballs are all
Yeah.
about. They take these issues.
They're calling it the Don't Say Gay bill. Well, there's nowhere in this bill. Let me see if I could share this. If I could remember how to do this, it's been a while. Share screen. I gotta go here. Okay, and then I'm gonna go here. I think this is it. Let's see, we got this. And yes, I don't know if you guys could see that, but I'm going to try to see. That's a pretty long bill. It's 7 pages. Out of the 7 pages, they came up with a one-liner because this is what political organizations and individuals with an agenda love to do. I've seen this being done since I first transitioned back in 2003. I was being used as a pawn. And that's what these organizations, whether it's the LGBT agenda or whether it's the Christian agenda, whatever it is, there's an agenda, and you will be used to push their views. And I will never be used by any organization again. I have, even though I don't identify as Christian anymore, and I don't even want to take part in any of the LGBTQ type of things because I see and I've seen for a very long time the deception. Not to say that everyone that's LGBT is deceptive, but the organizations that are pushing things, the political organizations that do this, do not have a good intent. So,
Yeah, I mean, out of all the things that the bill does say, it does not say don't say gay.
exactly.
And it's over, it's like 1,300 words, right? It's like 7 pages long. So if you want to take time, look it up, just Google HB 1557 text or whatever, and you will find the bill and you will be able to read it for yourself.
Here's the
But
link.
The one thing that, out of all the things that the bill is saying, right, that classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3. That is the crux of why people are in an uproar. These gay rights activist groups are absolutely up in arms about it and absolutely making their opinions be known about the fact that they say that this basically says don't say gay.
Right.
That the kids are being encouraged not to say, to not mention their parents are gay, or that their sister is gay or something,
Right.
which the bill doesn't say anything about. It just says that sexual orientation, gender identity education can occur in kindergarten, just after they get out of nursery
I
school,
know. You want to
up to
like?
third grade.
It's crazy. It's crazy, and you know to
Kids 5 to 7.
yeah.
5 to 7. I don't think I ever was told anything about the birds and the
No,
bees
no,
or
that's
about
not the time.
human anatomy when I was 5 or 7.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
not the time. It's not a time at all to be informed of these things. You're to deal with playing with your toys. During that time, you explore. You explore playing with dolls or cars. It doesn't matter what sex you were born into, or as. You explore. That's the time to explore. Have fun. Don't. I suggest parents don't sit there and freak out if you have a little boy who wants to play with dolls. Let him. He'll outgrow it. But the more you put emphasis on, no, that's bad. You shouldn't do that. The more that curious mind is going to want to do it, and God knows what's happening in that head, and especially with all the grooming and stuff that's taking place nowadays.
and I think that's a real danger. There's a real danger in groomers that are working in the public school system, like, you know, teachers that really have an agenda to teach kids about, I don't know, they seem to be inspired to teach about gender queerness and gender neutrality and all these things. And they are like, I mean, we were watching some TikToks of some of these teachers who put these videos out, just talking about how they're so excited to share their beliefs and how they, want to educate
Mm-hmm.
kindergartners and first graders who should be learning about coloring and numbers and
Yeah,
mathematics and things like that.
yeah, and not about should they, what pronouns should they use with their teacher, and what pronouns should they use. I mean, to me, the most crazy thing is like, so what do I refer you as? Him, her, them, they, their. I mean, it's like, seriously? We're changing the English language, which is difficult as it is, even further by doing this. When you think of the word there, you're not thinking about that person as an individual, or you're thinking about
Them or
them,
they.
plural.
Mhm.
Like, how many legions are inside that body that we're talking about? You know, I mean, it's very, very bizarre to me. This whole concept, and back in the day when we transitioned to try to blend in, to try to live the best life that you possibly could live and feel comfortable in your own skin. This whole concept that you need a whole cheerleading squad and everybody to validate you, I've never understood that. Because if you need that, that means you're questioning it yourself, and then you're not really 100% sure of what you've done, and that you require everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's really amazing to see where we are in society, where a bill that was really introduced as a protect parents' rights bill to have full disclosure from their, school system. And, I mean, when I grew up, there was such a thing as parent teacher conferences,
Yes.
and that was like an open line of communication between, your mom, your dad, and your teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And in October, I think it was, after the school year started, they would have the first round, and parents would go in the evening, and they would have a hour-long session with the teacher, and the teacher would divulge the information that they knew about, specifics about their student,
Right.
which is the parent's child. And everything was out there. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, Johnny's not listening in class.
Mm-hmm. He talks too
He
much, or
talks too much,
yeah.
or Sarah likes to doodle while we're, or she's a good listener,
Mm-hmm.
or I mean, and point out different things that they could work on, you know, and the parent could have some input for the teacher and say, please, if you notice, maybe they could catch the fact that the child can't see the chalkboard.
Yeah.
I mean, certain things, because then kids are being able to that information of the children is able to be relayed to the parent,
Exactly.
you know,
But what
I
is
mean,
happening now is that the school wants to take full control and push the parent out of the equation, allow the child to dress, express in the opposite gender that they were born in, and not tell the parents. That is lying. That's being deceitful.
like for a year, there was one of these things that happened
Yeah.
where a child was identifying as a girl, and mom and dad didn't know about it until a
Mhm.
year later when the teacher was like, "Oh yeah, we changed their name
Yeah,
a long
yeah.
time ago."
And then you
It's
get,
like,
you get individuals that are actually grooming your kids and are trying to plant these seeds in there, and that's not good. Kids are already confused enough. We don't need any more confusion. Just because he wants to play with dolls with his sister or friends doesn't mean that, oh, you must be a girl. Let's change your sex. No, this once upon a time this was so rare, and now, I mean, what's
yeah, it's
going
like
on
the
here?
gates are down, and everyone, like I said, this trans experience has been turned into like a catch-all
Hmm.
for diagnosis. It's like, oh, you don't this, oh, you must be trans.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't that, oh, you must be trans.
And
And
then
it's
the
like,
lies, like letting somebody feel that they could actually alter their biology. No matter what I've done, I have not managed to be able to alter my biology. And I'm sure that there are many people out there that have transitioned. You think you've been able to alter your biology, but we can't. So, real realization of what is possible and what isn't goes a long way, so that you don't hit a wall and then you're like really depressed because you feel like, well, I can't fully be what I want to be. So now that's when the suicidal ideations really kick in, because now you've resorted to everything but you still can't get to what you want. So understanding what this is for, to alleviate as much dysphoria as possible, to live your life the best way you can, without having to push this on other people, force it down people's throats, and believe that you could, just because you've taken some hormones, just because you added or removed certain things, then now you have every right as that original biological sex and compete in competition, in
competitive
competitive
sports.
sports, and do whatever it is that you want to do, just because you've been a year on hormones and blockers. Which leads us to our next little topic here. And I'm sure you must have been under a rock if you haven't heard about this, but it's been everywhere. Um, and I'm going to let you speak your mind first, because I've actually spoken regarding this and made videos, and I've you know have talked about it on my Facebook, and yeah.
Well, this individual, Leah Thomas, actually transitioned back around, I guess now I watched some podcast thing that they were on, and basically it was like the year 2019.
So they said on that podcast.
Yeah,
There's
on that
other on
podcast. So
that
they're saying that
podcast.
it was during the pandemic,
Mhm.
but it's to me, I've put Facebook posts on my wall to call this out because I personally have my own very strong opinions about transgender females competing against biological females in a competitive format, especially in a university format, where they're competing at the collegiate level. And I just find it very
Let me take this off, because it
difficult.
seems like when we're sharing stuff.
I find it very difficult to understand why this has to happen, because it's like back there was a day when transsexuals transition, and I think that there needs to be an understanding of there is a difference between being transgender and being a transsexual, right? Because
Right.
transsexual means that there's a degree of dysphoria that in order to alleviate it, the transition is necessary in the mind of that person, and they do whatever they can in
Hold on,
order
hold on. I
to.
don't know if we're actually coming through here. It seems like it's just going around. through. It seems like the left chat is not going through. Let's see if it does the same thing. Okay, it looks like we're okay now. But,
Okay.
okay.
Well, I mean, and there was a day when, people would, knowing these things and society and how it was and responding to people doing these type of extreme surgical procedures and things of this nature, that they would do their best to keep themselves from being anywhere above the radar.
Yeah.
They literally wanted to transition so that they could just blend in and just, stay out of sight, out of mind. And it seemed like society was going in the direction of saying, hey, we get it. Okay, there's a certain few of you that feel this way and you choose to live your lives. And,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, it seems like society was understanding that,
They were starting
and
to, yeah.
like when you started doing advocacy work and stuff
Mm-hmm.
to talk about, hey, there's some of us that this is how we choose to live our lives, right?
Right.
But what has happened, and in that picture you saw, this person has their male genitalia front and center in a women's swimsuit,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just really not cool.
No, and
It's not right, and it speaks to the fact that I really question, I mean, sincerely question any degree of dysphoria that they may have.
yeah,
Because
because
I would be wearing a gaff. I would be like doing something. I wouldn't even be competing.
no,
Honestly, I would never even be competing
because they're
because
not
of
there.
the degree
You
of
know,
dysphoria
yeah. I mean,
itself.
as I mentioned in my video yesterday, and knowing, having lived with a trans woman, married to a trans woman, I know when that dysphoria kicks in, it's like to the point that they don't want to go outside, they don't want anybody to see them,
Want to hide under a rock.
yeah, and it's like this person is like getting all the attention in the world, and they're loving it. They're loving it, and so I questioned what kind of dysphoria, and then they said, "Oh yeah, I started believing that I was born in the wrong body in 2018." Oh boy, what would that just like poof happen overnight?
Well, all it takes is one or two YouTube videos
Yeah.
to get someone to start thinking that
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah, but is that questionable? Is that real? Because if it's just like somebody, and I know the hive mind, and I know how easily people are influenced with television and the smartphone and everything else. But 2018 is when they found out, and all of a sudden, boom, they started taking blockers, which they believe changes them.
Changes their puberty.
Yeah,
And it's like,
No.
it doesn't. It doesn't. And if you're taking a pill form, even less.
Less,
right?
exactly.
Because, 80%
percent
of
of
that
that gets
isn't even being
gets
processed.
peed out. But I truly question this person's genuine belief that they're trans. I think that during the pandemic, as many people, because we've heard a lot of people decided that they were either genderqueer or trans during the pandemic, because they were like losing their minds, being stuck at home, and whatever traumas kind of like got really raised up during that time. I don't believe that person's trans, and I don't believe that that person, has transitioned enough to the point where they could compete against women.
Well, when you've been a decorated swimmer on the college level, actually were ranked an All-American in your high school in the state of Texas. They're from a high school in Austin, Texas, and they were like an elite swimmer at the high school level, right?
Yeah.
All American in the country.
Yeah.
To be able to get to go to Penn State and to compete as a male for not 1 year, for 3 years. So that tells me that there was a camaraderie between the women's team and the men's team, and these are all people that know each other.
Yeah.
They probably joked around with each other and messed with each other in the same, and kind of the sarcasm that athletes do, guys and girls and stuff on the bus together, going from venue to venue together, competing in different meets and stuff. Athletes, that's what they do, right? That you would think that there was you know, an awareness that if you were to transition and to want to compete on the women's team when you've been on the guys' team for so long, that there would be a problem with that, you
Exactly.
know.
And then look at the size of this individual. Okay, look at the size compared to the other the other females.
Leah is 6'3". God only knows what Leah's wingspan is, right?
Exactly.
God only
Exactly.
knows what kind of chest development, pectoral strength, arm strength, the cupping in the hands, and all
Yeah,
that stuff. The kicking ability. I mean, there are definite advantages
definitely. A
with
lot.
male biology when it comes to athletic performance. Not to mention lung capacity,
Yeah,
which is never going to shrivel from taking estrogen.
never. That's there's certain things. Like for instance, I transition from female to male, and years on hormones. There are certain things that I can't ever do to remove what has happened by the use of that hormone for the past 19 years. I've tried to detransition on several occasions. Can never take away. It's just it would be virtually impossible. So I can imagine, it's like, do they think they're going to like all of a sudden shrink and their bone mass is going to shrink? And yeah, you lose some muscle size, because you don't have, but not all of it.
You know, a big part of swimming is lung capacity,
Yeah,
the ability to hold your breath underwater when you're swimming, and the ability for the blood to circulate to your muscles and stuff and be able to work more efficiently. I mean, it's just a proven fact that men have bigger lungs than women.
and heart,
Yeah, and heart.
pumping blood throughout, disadvantage that a lot of females have that are swimmers if they have a lot of breast tissue. I mean, you have breast implants. Running before breast implants,
Not the
running
same.
after breast implants.
Not the same. Not
Leah
the
doesn't
same.
have any breast implants, you
No,
know?
and also the fact that these swimmers, these women competing at the collegiate level, they have issues that they have to deal with that a trans female swimmer wouldn't ever have to deal with, which is the post and premenstrual period. I
Yeah.
mean, you're talking about or being in the men's season itself and stuff.
Itself,
And
yeah.
how about if that hit somebody while they were at the meet?
You're going to slow
All the
down
bleeding,
tremendously.
how
That,
much
yeah.
bloating. I mean, taking into
Fatigue.
these NCAA regulator committee people don't seem to use common sense when it comes to talking about the real issues that biological women have to overcome
Hmm.
in order to compete.
Exactly.
Because I mean, a trans woman would never have to deal with those issues on a monthly basis
Exactly.
ever.
Ever. And we're talking about a good 2 weeks because the pre and the post and the during, you know, it could be disabling. I know. I had that,
Went through it.
went through it, and I know exactly what it feels like when you're having PE classes and you're on your time, and it's like you didn't feel like running the dash or doing anything. You just like wanted to crawl in the corner and literally just die, But Leah will never have to experience that. That's an advantage right there. Massive advantage. The fact that she doesn't have any breast tissue. You know, there's just so many things, besides the heart size and the lung capacity, which is a big one.
And this isn't taking away from anyone's like ability to transition, because as a trans woman myself, I'm like, hey, if that's what you feel is the best for you, the best representation of who you can be and stuff like that, that's great. No one should rip you for it. No one should, castigate you for it or anything. I mean, it's like it's your thing, right? But when it comes to like sports and stuff like that, I mean, we're talking about these real life scenarios where a biological female who's been training swimming in a pool since they were like 7,
Mm-hmm.
and the culmination of their experience of being a swimmer and an athlete is college, right? Is the collegiate level and competing in Division I championship
Yeah.
in Atlanta like this past week.
Right.
That's the pinnacle.
Yeah.
That's the height.
Yeah. Because you want
That's
to
as high as you get.
you want to be able to go to the Olympics, and you
Well,
want to be able,
potentially you competed in the Olympics, but at your senior level,
yeah.
that's when
Yeah.
everything ends.
Yeah.
And the only thing that you can do is compete in the Olympics if you're able to. But there's so many collegiate level athletes that'll never compete in the Olympics,
Yeah.
right? So you're taking away the chance for a little girl who started at 6 in the pool to be able to compete
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to win a championship in the women's division.
Exactly.
You know,
That's pretty sad.
it's wrong.
Totally.
It's wrong.
And we have Hakuro-san saying hi, hello.
And
Hello.
it's just not it seems like it to cater to one person
Mm-hmm.
who literally was 454th place in the country as a man and now is number 1.
Yeah, that's crazy. And Findran, I think they're called, says hi, Lynna. Good to see you.
Oh, I don't see it. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's just for me, I just find it really sad that someone could be so selfish in the sense of, and I'm talking from personal experience because I know what it's like as a transitioning trans woman back in 2014. You couldn't tell me that I wasn't going to become a woman and that I wasn't a woman. It's like it's only after the years and years of living and transitioning that one comes to understand the ramifications of what one has done and the limitations of what one actually can accomplish
Exactly.
in transition, and not to take away from being trans or anything like that. If that's what you feel is important for you to do, please make sure that it's definitely what you need to do for you, or else you're going to regret what's taken place.
Yeah, because in the long run, through the years, you start to realize, as you said, and then you start to also realize what you've lost and the damage done. And at the moment when we first start this transition journey, we don't see anything else around us. It becomes tunnel vision, and it's like a train. I'm going to take off, and we don't care about what's happening around us or who we're hurting or anything like that, because at the moment it's like how a child wants something and he throws a temper tantrum in the middle of the store, and he doesn't care that you're embarrassing the heck out of your parents or your mom, because usually I don't think most kids will throw the tantrum in front of their father, and the world just like collapses, and all they think about is they want this and they want it now. Well, that's us, the trans individuals, when we first start. But as you get older, as life shows you things, as you realize all the losses and all the pain, and then you realize, well, I could only get so far with this. Then you really start putting things into perspective.
And the thing is that one does this to alleviate dysphoria. One does this in order to try to circumnavigate life the best way that you possibly can. And some of the times the things that one thinks of when you initially do it are these pipe dream ideas that you think that paradise is on the other side, that full transition is going to bring about like this euphoric experience of being able to like conquer the thing that was limiting you, and now that you are a whatever you want to call yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that now, oh, you've made it. And it's like, no, one does this because one is trying to deal with gender dysphoria. Whatever reason it's there, one is trying to deal with it, right? And it's a hard road.
It is a hard road, and I myself have transition again, detransition, trying to find that thing inside of me that was ailing me, and trying to like understand. because there was a point in my life where I looked at myself and I'm like, I'm not really a man. So what am I doing this for? And all the trauma, childhood traumas that I went through, and not to blame anybody, because eventually you grow up and you have to deal with the things that has hurt you in the past, and you have to grow and evolve from it. But there was a lot of confusion, and I'm sure a lot of people go through that confusion. Not everybody goes detrans and trans and detrans and trans. I'm the type of person, and I could like be extremist at times, and I will do things to try to figure things out. It's like a dress rehearsal type of thing, and I that's why I say, in my opinion, transition doesn't solve the problem. We do it because we find that's okay. That's something I'm going to try to do, and let's see if this works. Well, once you transition, especially as an FTM, and you put those hormones in your body for years and years and years, you'll never, and I know very few people understand this. The voice will never get back. The hair will never stop growing, because now I created an artificial hair growth that will grow more than normal. So laser, all that stuff for me would not work, because it's such a strong strength of the hair that grows in my face and all over my body. The losing the hair on my head, just things that just it would be just too painful to go the other way back. And I've tried it, so I can't say that I didn't. So this is how I feel comfortable, and this is how I can navigate life. The other, you know, it just doesn't work. Had I left myself alone and I never would have done it, it would have been a different story.
And we've talked about that. We've had honest conversations about, sometimes I feel really sad for you because, the sense of like, oh, I shouldn't have done this, and oh, I wish I would have left well enough alone, and I could have presented as a very masculine female if I wanted to, and I could be, go between the gender line
Mm-hmm.
as I chose to in the past. That you lost that ability when you started to take testosterone,
Yeah.
which it wasn't explained to you what would happen, the
No, no.
ramifications of it, and you weren't told, oh, by the way, you're going to have male pattern baldness.
Yeah.
I mean, back when
Yeah, they didn't have much of
they didn't
anything.
really
Yeah.
have, and so much so that female bodybuilders, they stopped competing, in the Mr. Olympia. They didn't have that category afterwards because they got so masculinized
You
that
couldn't tell the difference between the male
they
and the
didn't
female. Yeah.
they just weren't drawing the crowd.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted the fans and spectators didn't want to see that, right?
Yeah. And that's how I started out as a female bodybuilder. So, yeah, it's AC kicking in again. So I've been on both sides, and I feel that I could speak intelligently and have compassion to the point where I understand what it feels like to feel that you're not happy with who you are, because either you were objectified as a woman and you don't like the way men look at your upper part, and you want them gone because you feel objectified. You've been probably molested or something. You favored your father over your mother. Your mother was not a kind, loving human being, so you didn't want to be like your mother. There's so many different reasons why I believe people transition, and I've made videos about that. But bottom line is, we've got to be real to ourselves and with each other. We can't force this on people. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I find this community has done. It has tried to ram this down people's throats, try to shame people for not wanting to date you because you're trans. You can do whatever you want with yourself, but you can't force other people to date you, to see you how you want to be seen. If you require validation from other people, then there's something deeper than gender dysphoria going on in you, in my opinion. You know?
But I think that the important thing is that there are therapies being used these days which are encouraging young, specifically young females to get on board and transition because they feel this way or that way or the other way. And it's like, there was this big like wake up call when you said something back in 2015, 16, and said, mark my word, there's going to be a train line of detransitioners. And here we are, year
Yeah,
2022. The detransition boards are lighting up all
they're
over
crazy.
Reddit, all over TikTok, all over Twitter. There's a huge movement of these specifically females that
Hmm.
transition
Yeah.
at a young age.
Well, because it's very typical for women to be objectified and for this particular part of the body to be dysphoric. Majority of girls don't like their things. Those are meant for feeding babies. And when the first thing that a guy does is look at your top, and instead of looking at your eyes, you're like, oh. Or when first time you go out with a guy and they want to grope you, and it's just so. What do a lot of women want to do? They don't want any part of it. They want to be like their brother, short without a shirt on, shirtless, and they want to like not feel objectified and feel strong. And women have not been empowered. I mean, look at right now what's happening. People are like praising this transgender, so-called transgender, which I don't think they are, individual, and not realizing, but hey, what about that young girl who lost her spot, who has been training all her life?
Yeah.
So it's that's one of my biggest problems, and I think that's one of the reasons I didn't want any part of this community. I didn't even want to be trans. I was so disgusted with what I was seeing in the turn of events, because when I transitioned back in 2003, things were very different compared to what they are now.
Hakuro said, it is something serious indeed. Dysphoria is the difficulty of accepting biological gender.
Yeah, and earlier on, they had said, I found your channel through the detransition video. I was fascinated by the amount of facts and truths told. Congratulations for the content. I'm from Brazil. Welcome, and thank you for commenting and being part of the chat. Yeah, and I still believe everything that I've said. Okay, I know that this is how I present. I know that I love this human being more than life itself. And we've gone through a lot of ups and downs, and we've been through a lot. But as we mature and grow old together, we see, I see you, I see the hurt that you've been through, I see the hurt that you go through daily, you know, because it's like having to choose, and I can't even imagine when you're having to choose between, one certain thing and then another certain thing, and you're like trying to, you know and then when you're put all this thing in your head when you first start transitioning, you think you're invincible, you think that everybody's going to accept you, you think that everything's going to be hunky-dory, and you don't even think of the ramifications.
You literally think that you're going to become the biological opposite.
Yeah.
You really do believe that. And it's something that, you're like, okay, well, let's do this. Let's make this
Yeah.
happen. And this is what, has to be, and this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to live my authentic self, be
Mm.
true to myself. And then you just kind of like whitewash all of your biology,
Mm.
thinking that it's just going to go away, magically disappear,
It doesn't.
and it doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear. It's and I think that there's been a massive like injustice done to so many people who deal with gender dysphoria, in the sense of like making them feel that because they have a mental issue that they're dealing with, that it's something that is wrong,
Mm.
with the fact that that it's like um, it's something that is like, oh my gosh, you're mentally unstable. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, who in their right mind would do what I did, to leave their family and transition and not have children anymore, and not to know about your kids or your potential grandkids or anything, and not to have any interaction with the world that then was, and to, yeah, it's just, there's so much at play. And people like, I mean, that whole concept of like yeah, I had to have had something mentally wrong with me to
Right.
do what I did,
Right.
you know.
And I know a
And
lot of trans people don't understand that because they're just like, I'm just fixing a medical condition. Well, there's nothing wrong with our bodies. And I think we can clearly say, if we're truthful with ourselves, the body worked fantastically. The body was working great. Now, our thought process, for whatever reason, whether it was trauma, whether there was a hormonal bathing that got the brain a certain way, um, that still doesn't give the full on just go and take dangerous chemicals and alter your body to be something that you think you could be. And we do, and there's tons of people that are doing it. But how much does that really solve? You know, I mean, I find it that there's a lot of people that transitioned and they've gone the full gamut and they're still not happy. You know, is there happy people out there that transition? Maybe, yeah. But I'm sure that in the back of their mind, especially those that have lost families, those that have lost their jobs, those that have lost a lot of things with transition, because I find there's more loss than gain. There's some gain, but there's some loss too. And sometimes the loss is very painful.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with admitting that this is not normal, right? This is not something that is a normal part of the life of a human being. You know,
Exactly.
this is definitely something that there's something wrong. On the chemistry, there's something wrong with how things are firing in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
Where, I mean, there's definitely something
It's
that is
neurological.
causing.
Mm-hmm.
They used to call it gender what
Identity disorder.
identity
Disorder.
disorder means the orderly way of dealing with stuff is not being able to be dealt with in the mind of a gender identity disordered person,
Exactly.
you know. And I think when we took that stigma and we kind of like put it in
They swept it
some
under a
kind of a
rug.
shoebox
Yeah.
and said, "Oh no, it's just dysphoria."
Yeah.
You
And
know,
it's
it's like
like,
no, there's something literally
wrong.
wrong
Yeah.
with us in our brain to think that we could become the opposite
Yeah.
sex,
Yeah.
which unfortunately is not possible in the real sense of how humans
Yeah.
will
Yeah, and we do
become.
what we can. We do what we can to live life. To navigate it, to be as happy as we possibly can be. But what I've learned that through this, if you weren't happy before you did this, you're not going to be happy after you do this. Because gender isn't everything. I know right now we live in a world of super duper gender confusion with what we call blue hair people and green hair people and all those different types of identities that are out there. But life doesn't revolve around gender. That's just a very small part of who we are. And if you think that if you just magically wave a magic wand and you're going to change yourself, that life is just going to become hunky dory, you got something coming for you.
And sometimes, I look back at my pre-transition days and I think about how little gender was talked about in my daily life. If
Mm-hmm.
I had a back shelf where I put ideas and things in my mind and I would go there, when I had time, when I wasn't busy working, when I wasn't doing and the things of life, then I could think about those things. But it was never really something that I would like entertain. I would have a conversation about. I always avoided the topic of trans anything, anything had to do with anything regarding that. I was always not really communicative about anything with regards to that. And I come to understand now, it's like post transition, there isn't a day that doesn't have the word trans in it. There's
Mm-hmm.
not a day that we don't wake up talking about something related to trans ideology, something related to being trans or someone else's trans experience or seeing someone on Facebook or
Yeah.
YouTube
It's
or
it's everywhere.
I mean, it's like
You could be listening to a podcast and or to a what's that guy, the guy who works in Fox, and it's like the gender thing always is popping in. You
It's
know?
like the butt of jokes and everything. It's like it supersedes talking about policy. If it's foreign policy, they relate it to trans
Yeah,
ideology,
yeah,
and it's like it's become kind of like the little side joke for everybody because it's become a joke. It's
mm-hmm.
become a joke because trans activists have made it into a joke because back in the day there were very few people who would ever attempt to do anything like this, and those that did, they usually just wanted to stay under the radar.
Yeah,
They didn't want to make a big stink. They didn't want to be seen,
mm-hmm.
noticed. I remember talking to an older trans woman that transitioned before, and she was like, in 1976, if you were to tell someone that you were trans, you would be killed.
Yeah,
Literally Killed.
mm-hmm.
And it's like that fear kept people from doing anything because they knew what the social ramifications were.
Yeah,
Nowadays, it seems like, everybody wants to identify every which way they want to.
yeah.
All the gates are down, and it's a free for all for anybody and anyone.
And then the word brave, and then you know all these different gender types, that people are expressing or not gendered or whatever it is. I mean, the world is just turning upside down.
I think it's getting to the place where they're becoming very, um, there, there's 2015, Laverne Cox was on a cover of Time magazine, I think, and it said the trans tipping point. And I think what's happened now is that with the things that have happened with Leah Thomas and other things in Florida, that there's really a trans tipping point
Yeah,
now in the opposite direction, whereas they were trying to tip it in the other direction in 2015 with Caitlyn Jenner
mm-hmm.
and the Esquire centerfold magazine, beauty whatever thing, and then here you have a trans athlete winning Division 1 title for the first time in the history of collegiate sports and actually knocking off a biological female from being able to compete, at a high level. I mean, when it was that bicyclist person that did it, like maybe 3 years ago,
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
that trans woman that
Yes,
won some senior
yeah.
division, it was like it was an outrage to a lot of people then, but
It's really,
this is like a dagger,
yeah.
because
I think people have had enough.
I think so.
I think people have just totally had enough. To the point that I wanted to bring on our last thing here. Leah has been feeling comfortable around her teammates, and when you're in the locker room, you take a shower, you, I guess, expose yourself. Well, a couple of the girls had reported that to the coach, that they didn't feel comfortable with Leah parading around with her different body part than theirs. And the coach didn't listen, Leah obviously didn't listen, so now they have written a letter, and contacted the authorities. There's a criminal code and that they're breaking. A person commits indecent exposure if that person exposes his or her genitalia in any public place or in any place where they are present other persons under circumstances in which he or she knows or should know that this conduct is likely to offend, affront, or alarm. And obviously, it's done that.
I mean, just the fact that that picture that we saw earlier,
Yeah.
where Leah, you can see the full front of Leah's body, and you don't need to imagine what's down there.
No, you could very
It's
well see
very,
that.
very well seen. But I mean, you're literally, I mean, that's like for me, I avoid situations like that, because I just would never, ever in a million years want to ever be offending anyone or causing anyone any kind of uncomfortableness or fear or anything like that. I mean, that's like something that you know, it's just an unspoken. You don't have to like, be indecent as a trans woman that has no surgery or anything like that, or even if you did have surgery, to be that indecent. I mean, it's just
Yeah, it's crazy.
unbelievable,
So anyway,
unthinkable.
a letter to the police and other legal authorities in Philadelphia reporting the potential and alleged violation of the laws on indecent exposure caused by the presence of transgender swimmer Leah Thomas in the women's changing room at the University of Pennsylvania has turned the heat up on sports and college authorities under pressure to safeguard women's sports for biological women.
Women's Declaration International drew up their letter to the legal authorities listed at the top of their document. Um, After journalists working on American affairs for the British media outlet Daily Mail Online were told by athletes on the Penn women's swimming team that their concerns about being exposed to Thomas's male genitalia in the women's changing room had resulted in them being told to, quote, accept this harassment and indecent exposure, unquote.
The issue of transgender inclusion in women's sports has been a runaway train hurtling down a track towards sports such as swimming for many years. Sports governors chose to ignore it until it was staring them in the face in the form of blazing headlines the world over after Leah Thomas outside the best 400 men in his best events when racing as a man on Penn University swim team 2 years ago. Catapulted into the record books in women's racing as the force to beat in 200 and 400-yard freestyle event this college season ahead of an NCAA championship season in which a different form of March Madness has lasted all winter.
College and NCAA rules do not require Thomas to do much more than identify as a woman in the infancy of a transition process in order to qualify to race among women in college swimming. The storm that ensued forced the NCAA to drop its lax inclusion rules and adopt new USA swimming inclusion policy that requires any transgender woman to prove that their testosterone levels did not exceed a set limit for 36 months prior to seeking registration required to compete in women's racing.
Now it has come to this a complaint from the WDI that the conduct of Penn, its swim coaching staff, and college sports authorities in the Ivy League violates North Pennsylvania Criminal Code and University of Pennsylvania policy.
Citing the Daily Mail's interviews and the Pennsylvania Code of Law, WDI USA President Kara Dansky and U.S. Director of Keep Prisons Single Sex, Amanda Stallman, in a letter dated February 1st, highlight the following.
So while Leah covers herself with a towel, sometimes there's a decent amount of nudity, the swimmer said. She and others have had a glimpse at her private parts. She stated that team members have raised their concerns with the coach, trying to get Thomas ousted from the female locker room, but got nowhere.
Multiple swimmers have raised it multiple different times, the UPenn swimmer said. But we were basically told that we could not ostracize Leah by not having her in the locker room and that there's nothing we can do about it. That we basically have to roll over and accept it or we cannot use our own locker room.
It's really upsetting because Leah doesn't seem to care how it makes anyone else feel. And that's usually the case with a newly transitioned individual, which is pretty sad. The 35 of us are just supposed to accept being uncomfortable in our own space and locker room for like the feeling of one.
Referring to her teammates, the swimmer was reported saying, most others are scared to speak out.
The news report describes conduct that violates both Pennsylvania Criminal Code and University of Pennsylvania policy. So, I mean, there's a whole slew of things that we're not going to read, but you all get the gist. It's they're going to have to do whatever they have to do to put a stop to this.
It's really sad, because this is not the best look for trans identified people, you know.
So Madeline Renee, let me see here. Um, right. Thank you for being mature and having common sense and dignity as a transgender woman. I get embarrassed by people like Leah. She does not represent me. And I think, Madeline, a lot of trans individuals feel the same way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that, the voices of other trans individuals need to be known, made known, to give your opinion about this matter.
Yeah.
Because as a trans woman, I'm not okay with it. As a trans woman, I'm offended.
Hmm.
And I can only imagine what it's like for a biological woman to have to deal with this on a daily basis.
We were watching earlier, I don't know what it was, something from Australia that, women get harassed in the workplace and they're pretty much have to take it, get fired if they want to move up in certain positions. They have to like just be quiet about these things or else they
Mm-hmm.
get harassed. Women, and not to say that women are always innocent. I don't believe in like pushing one gender over the other. Both men and women equally could be problematic, but women physically are the weaker sex. They've been going through a lot through times, in history, being owned, being disrespected, being um, hurt physically, and all sorts of different things. So this seems like another slap in the face when you've got, individuals who are identifying as a woman themselves, but they are like not looking after the well-being of those who are trying to identify as. So it just seems to me like just another form of male harassment, another form of male aggression. And, I truly believe that a lot of these individuals that are saying they're trans, they're really not. And I don't want to offend anyone. I mean, I've done plenty of that throughout my lifetime, but I do want people to realize what's going on here. It's like this is not transphobic, saying that hey, you don't belong in that locker room, you don't belong swimming and competing against these young women. You've only been in this for a very short time, and you still have a lot of advantages over these women, and it's not fair.
I think, coming to terms with the fact that your biology is literally going to cause an inequity in competition level is something that would be a mature way of looking at it and taking your own feelings out of it. You could
Mm-hmm.
just, understand, hey, I competed as an elite male swimmer on the University of Pennsylvania Penn State's team. Probably shouldn't. I
Yeah.
probably shouldn't race
Mm-hmm.
as a woman, as a trans woman, because my anatomy hasn't changed.
Right.
I'm not shorter just because I said I'm a woman now.
Exactly.
I'm 6'3". I still have a tremendous wingspan.
Yeah.
I still have lats that'll run circles around any of my athlete friends that are on the women's team. I mean, it's just it's unfair.
Yeah.
It's not right. It's it's really a terrible way to present trans identity to the rest of the world. This is what they're making a stink about. This is what they're saying is a woman. And it's like, gosh, I'm a woman just because I say I am.
Exactly.
I don't even, at this point, there are people out there that say, I don't even have to do anything in order. I just feel like it today.
Right. And
You
and the
know,
thing is that no matter what we do to ourselves, we have to realize that our biology is never going to change. The best thing we could do is live our lives as quietly, as peacefully, as harmoniously as we possibly can. And we do that by not imposing ourselves on other people, just living life. We don't have to sit there and walk around with a sign and parading who we are and just, trying to beat up on women in a like Fallon Fox did for years, and things of that nature. If you really want to transition, you really feel that it's going to bring you peace, then please do it. But please don't force it on other people. And please don't sit there and want to continue your sport because now you feel like, oh, you don't want to compete as a male anymore. I'm going to be a quote unquote woman and I'm going to compete against female athletes when you know you're going to leave them in the dust, you know?
Um, yeah, we just had a comment.
That's
Someone
it.
asked a question.
Okay, so what is it?
What is a true trans? Certainly, dysphoria is necessary, even though many transition without dysphoria.
Well, I know that's a hot topic. What is a true trans? I could only go back maybe 30 years ago, where very few people transition, and a lot of people that transition probably had some sort of chemical imbalances, and you could see it in the way they express themselves. They didn't do well in society. If they didn't transition, they probably would not have made it in society. Probably been beat up, hurt, whatever else. Um, Dysphoria, in my opinion, comes in many shapes and sizes. I've always said, dysphoria is kind of questionable, but you could actually look at dysphoria and look at, if you don't feel comfortable with what you're seeing in the mirror, and you feel that you're in pain because you just don't function well the way you were raised or born as, and you feel that if you change, and I know the word feel, if you let me use another word, not feel, that you want to alter yourself to have a better I don't want to use the word feeling, have a better outlook about yourself, and navigate life with your head up and on your shoulders, and be good in life, then transitioning is something you need to do, right? But there are just certain individuals, in my opinion, that should not transition, or they're not doing it for the right reason. And that's what I say, they're not truly trans.
I
You
mean,
know.
my opinion on the matter is, this topic is a can of worms because once you label what true trans is and what true trans is not, then that just pair just polarizes the situation, and every individual is different, every situation is different. And are we talking about gay effeminate men who don't fit into society because of their effeminacy in the past, and how they chose to live their lives as women because they wanted to have male partners and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it a different thing where someone just feels something's amiss in their biology, or what, for whatever reason there's some brain disassociation with being the sex that they were born as? I mean, this is a very complicated issue, but I think that one of the ways that we can really tell certain things about trans identity or transsexualism in an individual is whether or not they accept their biology, whether or not they believe that, regardless of what they may want to think about themselves and how they want to be, that they will never become what they want to be. They'll do their best to mitigate what they were and to live with who they are, but that they are actually honest about their biology and come to terms with that. The fact that you speak to many transsexuals and they're not going to say, I'm a woman. I mean, I'm a man. I mean, they say, you know, I understand that, I was born this way. I'll never change this. It'll
Mm-hmm.
never become, you know, the other thing that I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to be. But this is why I did it in the first place,
Exactly.
was so that I could achieve a level of peace in my life to live with my decisions.
And the reason that I said what I said, this seems like it. Are we not? Let me see.
But
She
makes
goes, makes sense
sense
to
to
me.
me.
Are we on still, or is it going? Because I'm seeing it going round and round in circles here. I don't know.
You might just have your own internet, like your own cell.
Okay,
So,
but you know, what I saw and what I listened to a little interview they did with Leah, they found out they were trans in 2018. I think it takes you that long, especially in this day and age, that it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's been everywhere since what 2000? I don't know, 2000. In the 2000s, that's when it started to pop up. So I okay, thank you, Madeline. Um, I just I find that there are people that are using transition as an scapegoat, as a coping mechanism, um, and it's something totally different than dysphoria or some form of discomfort. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, they did this for an ulterior motive. Because if they were really concerned about transitioning, they would have put their career on hold and just focused on transition. Because you can't do both. You really can't. I mean, it's impossible. They haven't even matured in their transition, and we know that for the first 5 years, transitioners, we are like babies. We act like babies. We don't know how to have a disagreement without throwing fits, without name calling, without getting upset, without wanting to hurt another person because they're not seeing us. You know, the first 5 years of a trans person is rough.
Yeah.
Very, very rough. And, you know, some people take a little longer to mature, even longer than 5 years. But as the years progress, and I'm sure many of you, Madeline, you know, you you agree with what we're saying. I'm sure that your transition has changed from the beginning to where you are now and the way you see things. We mature, most of us. So I don't see Leah being somehow, some way devoted to transitioning the way that
Well, this is
they
the
need to.
last year of their eligibility as a college athlete to compete at the collegiate level. And for any athlete that has any degree of competitiveness in them, they want to finish on top. They want to end up, being able to have something that they could look back on that there's a record for them or whatever. But this is not the way to do it. This is not stomping on the rights of other individuals, of other people that have every right to be where they're at and to win the medals that they're entitled to win. One individual, one small group of people does not have the right to dictate to others how their collegiate lives should be remembered, because it's super important at the senior year
Yeah,
for a college athlete to compete because they know this is it.
yeah.
This is it.
They're taking away, the opportunity of the other women who have worked so hard, and now they're like they've really thrown a monkey wrench on that. So Madeline says, yes, I had to go through a type of puberty. I had to learn and grow in my transgenderism. You're right on. Yeah, and I've seen it because I've been with trans women, and fortunately, unfortunately, the trans women that I've had relationships with were early on. I mean, Jessica was very early on, and you were early on in your transition. And I had been like, I transitioned since 2003. So I was like, what is this all
Married to a
about?
biological
I was
female.
married to a biological female for almost 11 years. So, when I started dating trans women and going out with them, I was like, whoa. And then I had lots of transgender women friends, and I was just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So a lot of what I speak about is from experience, and I've seen, and things, and I don't ever want anyone to think that I'm being, not compassionate, that I'm being mean spirited. It's just when you see things and you are exposed to a lot of different behaviors, you start putting things together. I'm very analytical. I have an analytical mind that I could just, and you see me, it's like, I could sit there and put puzzle pieces together and go, aha, this is this. And a lot of times I'm pretty right. I mean, when I told you
Pretty
back in the
much.
day, there's going to be a massive amount of detransitioners.
Yeah.
And sure enough, boom, and everybody was saying I was crazy.
Give them enough rope,
Rope, and
and
they'll
they'll
hang
hang themselves with
themselves,
it.
and they turned that around saying that I'm telling people to hang themselves. No, it's just give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves because, it's like a bunch of teenagers, because that's what happens when you first start transitioning, you become, like you said, you're like going to this puberty and boy, misbehaving and just being loud and obnoxious and angry and oh goodness gracious, it's the common thing, and imagine that these are the individuals that are leading on this advocacy,
Yeah.
bunch of angry teenagers leading an advocacy. It's just, it doesn't.
Yeah, and it's like, and the whole gender non-neutral thing, and the whole
Non-conforming, yeah.
they, them, theirs is all those. I don't understand that at all, so I
And
can't really.
rude. We watched something yesterday. It was like in some sort of presentation that someone was trying to give at a college, and there's just a group of these individuals storming in, being rude, loud, obnoxious, violent.
Yeah, it was a Yale Law School where they were having a debate being presented by two opposing philosophical standpoints on an issue that was going to be discussed. And, all of a sudden, the students just turned it into like some kind of a chaotic
Yeah.
situation that, a few people that were activists, they started yelling, and then they got the mob mentality going. And
Hmm.
these two women that were speaking that were actually not in agreement with each other, that one was an atheist humanist, and the other one was from a Christian defense group or fund or whatever, law defense group, and they had to be escorted out of the campus
In
with
fear
the
of their
police.
safety
um,
because of the rally group, and we've seen that. We've seen how it's. I don't understand. I really don't understand the mentality and the behavior of some of these LGBTQ advocates and whatever other names they could be called, how they take over a situation and make it very violent, very aggressive, don't let anybody else speak, don't respect other people's opinions or views. And we're seeing it take place in the bigger stage in life where censorship is becoming rapid everywhere. Yeah, people should be entitled to speak their minds. We're not here to hold people's hands. We're not here to, if you don't have coping skills, then you need to learn to get some. We need to like go to therapy or something and learn to deal with life's issues because life has a lot of issues. And not everyone's got to cater to your specific needs.
I mean, you know, with regards to Leah, it just, for a person that's transitioning, they would, it just seems like, why would you want to be caught dead in a locker room situation? If you're dysphoric about what you have, why would you be exposing it to anyone
Yeah,
else?
I don't
You
get
know,
that. That's why I say I
it
don't
just
believe she's
doesn't.
truly trans. Because I know you wouldn't get caught in something like that without your
God,
gap.
no. I
It's
would
like,
never want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. I would never want to make anyone have any question or anything like that. I
yeah.
mean, that's
It's almost like she's
absolutely.
wearing that. It's like, yeah, look what I got.
It's almost like it's almost like a college dorm room joke.
I know.
Hey, I'll compete on the women's team next year, and I'll
Yeah.
take first.
Yeah.
It's almost like reverse men's rights
Yeah, was I
advocate
mentioned earlier.
activist. I did see some comments about, hey, women, you wanted equality. Now you have a male, born male, identifying as a trans woman competing with you. Now you get what
Yeah,
that I can do anything a man can
can
do.
do.
And these questions that have surfaced on the exterior of so much of feminist ideology is that concept of men and women being equal and
Yeah.
having the same abilities and stuff like that.
Well, the thing
And
is, women have worked really hard to have their space in sports and have their sports be taken serious. So, what is this going to do to the sport if other trans people do what Leah's doing? And Madeline says, "Thank you both for being so honest and transparent. Thank you for being so non politically correct and speaking the truth." You know, I think it's the right for those of us that want the world to look at the bigger picture, not just the little microscopic picture that these trans advocates are trying to put out there. And it's important to speak up. But thank you for acknowledging and thank you
Yeah.
for being in chat. I'm I've pretty much always spoken up, even back in the day, when I started seeing things. And, doesn't make me transphobic. Obviously, I'm trans and I'm married to a trans woman. But I do have my opinion on things. And I think it's important to speak up, and, we've gone to the other end of trying to be all trans, correct. And that never felt right to me because I felt like I'm lying and I'm just going with the status quo and feeding into the problem, So it's important to speak up and tell the truth and
I think that being honest about the experience of life as a trans person is something that would be beneficial for others to see because
mhm.
I would never ever advocate anyone to walk down this road. I would never advocate for anyone to do what I did. I would never advocate for anyone to live as a trans man or a trans woman. I would say that you really need to look at the situation for what it is for you and to take seriously the ramifications of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the repercussions are in the future for when you do it. Many of you will indeed lose family, just as I have experienced, just as you've experienced after being with me. You lost your family
Yeah.
after being with me.
Mhm.
I lost my family when I transitioned. It's an ugly reality, and it's something that you need to understand that these are the ramifications of some of the things. And some of you are lucky to be able to have the families that you have that are so welcoming and so positive for you. And you're lucky. You're one of the few. But I would say, to really look at it, especially if you're a midlife transitioner, you've lived your life, you're in the middle of a stage of like where you're at in life and not really sure what you should do. You feel uncomfortable, but you're still questioning. I would say don't go down this road if you can help it, because it's not all candy canes and rainbows. It's there's a lot of pain. uh, I still wake up at night crying. I still, dream about my family. I still deal with things. You ask me questions in the car sometimes, and my mind's often on La La Land somewhere, and the unspoken is the spoken, and these are the blunt realities of what happens.
Yeah, and I think that the advocacy groups are hindering people because they're not painting the true picture. We all lose family, we all lose something. You could even lose your health because kid yourself not, years and years and years of being on synthetics will eventually catch up with you. There's a lot of trans people that have been hurt by the treatment, and now we're seeing that the blockers are literally, creating osteoporosis and all sorts of problems in the youth. And we ain't seen nothing yet. There's going to be like I said, a massive detransitioner. There's going to be a massive lawsuits against these doctors because these kids are going to be so ill they won't even make it past 30. That's pretty
We
sad.
already know that blockers are dangerous because they were dangerous for what they were intended for.
Yeah,
Um, so what doesn't make them dangerous now that they're being used for off-label uses such as puberty blocking,
right. And just
some of
the
these medications and stuff. We know that estrogen, is dangerous for trans women to take. That's been proven because there have been studies of biological females who don't take those types of
because
estrogens
of the
because of the danger.
ramifications. There's many, many, many health issues.
And testosterone for trans
Yeah,
men can really cause a lot of
yeah,
problems,
heart problems, cancer, you name it, all slew. I mean, these are things that are
bone
there. Yeah, that's why they
brittleness.
have you test your blood every so often because it's not safe. But we do these things. We're playing Russian roulette in hopes that we'll get some alleviation from the dysphoria, from the discomfort, But in the long run, people have to really measure out: is it worth it? Is it not worth it? What am I losing? What am I gaining? How is it going to be when you get older? We haven't thought of that. Right now, I'm 50, going on 58, and you're 52. But what's going to happen when we're in our 70s? How are we going to think? When our entire families, things that we could have been part of, we haven't been part of because being ostracized from it. When we see that we're alone and sick and no one's coming to be there with us, how are we going to feel about that? What kind of legacy have we left behind by doing what we did? We were self-centered and did what we wanted for ourselves, and we pushed everyone away. And there's going to come a time as we get older, when we go into a nursing home, if we can't live in our own home, or when we have to see doctors all the time because of sickness, how are they going to treat us as transgender individuals? What kind of life are we going to have as we age? These are things that people don't think about.
Of course not, because the pretty side is the side that's the youthful side, the side that's always presented, that side that's on TikTok, the side
Yeah.
that's, showing people on T after how many months and
Yeah.
how wonderful they look and present themselves. And, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's beautiful when you're younger, but as you age, I mean, what are the ramifications
It's not
of
so
that?
pretty. I mean, a lot of transgender women get osteoporosis because even if you didn't get the surgery, being on hormone, you chemically castrate yourself. And what happens when you chemically castrate yourself? Your body's hormone that requires for healthy bone health and things of that nature is not working. So you see a lot of the older trans women; they're all like they've got osteoporosis posture, and they get clogs, blood clots, and all sorts of different things, and heart problems. As I continue to see a lot of my older trans friends, I'm in the hospital now because of this, that, and the other. Don't you think that goes in the back of my mind? And it's like, wow, okay, let's hope that because you're like hoping it doesn't happen to you, but there's no guarantee there's not going to happen to us.
And the fact is that there really isn't much tracing of older trans people as they age and stuff. I mean, they're not out in the limelight. They're not spoken of. I mean, it's like, once you lose that Instagram appeal, it's like nobody cares.
And
nobody cares about an older trans
No.
person.
And if you listen to some of the individuals who transitioned a long time ago, they've lost a lot of their trans friends. They've died, because
they're not around.
they're not around. They're not around because we're literally shortening our lifespan. I mean, I think about that every day. Is tonight going to be the night that I'm probably going to have a heart attack and I wake up tomorrow morning? But I think of these things because I know, I know what. Not sometimes knowing too much is not good.
You said you were going to be around till you're 102.
I hope so, baby, but I don't know.
You said I was going to make it to 96.
Yeah, I'm trying to program our positive thinking and make things happen. So Madeline says,
you both are so spot on. I would never, with my gender dysphoria, wish my gender dysphoria on anyone.
I wish that I was comfortable with my biological gender. Is not an easy walk. I know it's not. It's not, but I'm glad that people like you are there as well and speaking up. It's important. It's important that we let the future generation realize, please don't do this. Don't do this because it's not all rainbows and candy canes. It's so difficult, so hard, and I've walked back and forth, detransitioning is not an option for me. I start withering away. I start getting really old looking. I start not feeling good because I did a hysterectomy along with my top surgery. I require some sort of hormone in my body, and I will not take. I was very allergic to estrogen back in the day when I was having problems. When I was younger, they put me on some of that stuff, and it didn't help me at all. It actually made me worse. I don't think this. If you could help not doing this, don't do it because it's not gonna be what you think it is.
And I also wanted to say how much our hearts break for those of you who have become detransitioners and for the sense of loss that you have for the things that you had in the past, whether that be, that you went into it full bore and you had your breasts taken out and now you regret it and that you feel like you shouldn't have done it and everything. I just can't imagine that tremendous sense of loss, that, just because you believe the trans train and you believe that certain things were the way they were presenting it to be. And then after a year or two, you realize that you made the worst mistake of your life. now you can't really fix it,
And
you
I'm just
know.
thankful that some of them have been able to fix it because a couple of years on hormones, they're able to like somewhat get something back. Like I've seen some of them, their hair didn't fall off. I mean, my hair just kind of fell off completely. They didn't grow as much facial hair, so they're not dealing with as much. I mean, me trying to go through laser or electrolysis would be like impossible because my hair is thick, it's strong, it grows. And then I don't want to go into the world presenting as a female and getting sirred all the time because my voice and the way that I look, my mannerism, which I've always been very masculine, even before transition, because of my, progestin induced sterilization. And those that know me know that my mom took medication to get pregnant back in Cuba, and this is what happened. I was very masculine, very deep voice, even before transitioning. I had the happy trail, retroverse uterus, infertile, a whole bunch of different things. So, you know, I, I can't do the other. I can't. I can't. And I tried many times. I don't want to feel like being a hypocrite or whatever else. Is like if I were to have a magic wand and undo everything and be able to walk life the way that I walked it before I transitioned, then yes. But in this way, I can't. I can't go back to the other. I don't fully regret it because there's been some great things that I've experienced. Meeting you and marrying you is one of them. The strength, that I have. Although as a female bodybuilder, I was pretty kick ass. I think I lifted a lot heavier back then when I still had my uterus, my
Inner
innards. After they
parts.
removed my inner parts, I could never squat or deadlift as much as I could before. But this is the life I live now, and it's not like I'm miserable because I'm not. I'm not. Like I said, if I could wave a magic wand, you know, um, then it'd be different. But the way it is now, but I'm not in pain, so don't nobody worry about me being like in pain or whatever. It's just their thinkings. You think, and as an adult, you figure, okay, well, this is what happens. That old saying, "You make your bed, now lay in it," as my stepfather told us.
I think one of the things that I do miss is the sense of purpose.
Yeah,
That regardless of how you may or may not feel about transition, once you do transition and you experience the tremendous sense of loss that many of us do, and the tremendous sense of repurposing our lives to live, to be our quote unquote authentic self, and how in that fury and in that pace of change, you lose even the purpose of why you feel like you're purposeless,
yeah,
like you don't have a reason for existing.
and that's why I've
You
always
know,
said that transgender men and women, we really don't have like a function or a purpose. Like when before you transition and before you went into all this, you were a father. You had a great career. You loved your career. You got up every morning and you had a purpose to go out there and make money to take care of your family.
right? And you hear that, you know, we've been listening to like speakers like Jordan Peterson and stuff, and saying, there's no greater purpose in life than giving your life for someone else and living
Mm-hmm.
for someone else. And I experienced that as as a dad, as a parent, living my life for the needs of my family and to provide for the household, and feeling that sense of purpose, and then being told through countless people that would ever see me as I lived my life and I was doing it the right way, that, it was like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're a good one. You're good seed. You're the one that, you're a great example. What a wonderful, I'm proud to know you, that whole concept. And now after transition, you find yourself to be a pariah, to be an outcast, to be, a deadbeat, a person that abandoned, that left, that walked away, that was concerned more with themselves than with others, and, imploded everything around you in order to live your authentic life. And, it's like you have to live with that.
Yeah. So how much can you really enjoy your authentic life when knowing that you've lost just about everything and that your purpose is no longer there? because a lot of trans people in the beginning, and the mirror becomes your best friend. I know, because it's like everywhere you turn on the mirror, looking at your muscles, and if you're a trans woman, you're looking and taking shots at your dress and how good look you're looking and good you're looking and all that stuff. But that wears out because after a while, it's like, okay,
I see
yeah,
trans women doing that from 2012, 2011 that I had been following on Facebook. And some of these trans women are still doing it, still taking pictures in their bedroom with high heels on, with their
mhm,
knees bent and looking all behind their teeth
yeah,
and smiling at the camera and always like wanting to be given that accolade and putting that little nice little phrase out on Instagram and talking about how wonderful their life is and their cats or their dogs. And
and they're
and
single.
it's like most of the time, I for the most part, I never see that they're in a relationship.
Mm-mm.
They're ever happy in the sense of fulfilling a fulfilling life,
Yeah.
to live a life to please someone else.
Exactly, because
Um,
that's what it's all about. To tell you the truth, the first time I felt purpose, after transitioning, was with you, because with your terrible car accident, you gave me purpose, that rehab to take care of you. But you know,
and I can
before,
understand that because
yeah,
I mean, you never had children,
no, so you
so you
became my
don't you
child.
don't know what it's like to see an innocent life that needs you and that is depending on you
Hmm.
for its very breath,
Right.
and for food and for just guidance and
Yeah.
stuff. And here I was, totally impaired,
Yeah.
unable to fend for myself,
Couldn't
unable to
feed
eat.
yourself. You couldn't bathe
I
yourself. I
could
did
barely
everything for you.
function as
Yeah.
a human being, and there you were,
Yeah.
you
So you
know.
gave me purpose. Prior to transitioning, my purpose used to be my music, because I used to be able to sing, and I had my career, a occupational therapist, and I would take care of the elderly in nursing homes, and that was a purpose. When I transitioned, I didn't. Couldn't get as close to my patients because now I was a dude and they saw me differently. That killed me. I was like, oh my God, I can't go into this lady's room and help her dress, because now
Right,
I need to
help
bring
her
a
go to the
theme bathroom,
bathroom.
because it's like, I'm presenting as a guy. So there's so much, I lost my singing voice, I lost my hair. There's so much loss. And I'm sure many of you that have transitioned have gained things and you're happy. And you're still young, and there's certain things, and life is a lot better now as a transgender individual than it was back then. But in the long run, when you get older, when you sit there and reminisce and really look back, that's when life kind of goes, okay.
I mean, one of the things that I can't get out of my mind is just how, you know, I wasn't able to be there for my oldest son's wedding, and how he got married in the middle of the whole pandemic thing and all
Mm-hmm.
the things that were going on, and how I barely was able to even see it on a Facebook live feed and
I
stuff,
know.
and how things took place during that wedding. And I was like, gosh, if I was there, it wouldn't have looked like that, or I would have done this, I could have done that, I could have helped them with this. And it's like all the purpose that I had as a parent, as a
Mm-hmm.
dad, was all of a sudden, 2014, here we are, 2022, and it's been lost
Oh yeah.
completely. All that beautiful influencing that I had on my children, lost.
Yeah.
All that, guidance of how to navigate this world as a young man. I had four boys and one girl. I mean, a daughter that has no concept of a father's
Oh,
love. I mean, it's
that
just
breaks
like,
my heart.
it's like, what, if I wasn't dealing with such a massive degree of dysphoria, and my brain wasn't functioning right, how much would I have rather have lived to fulfill my
I know.
purpose
I know.
as that, even if, even whatever I felt like, if I could have just done it, but
It's
here we
hard.
are.
Yeah, it's hard. I
Here we
mean,
are.
being, a, a child of an individual who always put themselves first. And I don't want to badmouth my mother, but sometimes parents shouldn't be parents because it when you're on the other end of the receiving stick, it's hard for both. I'm sure, but it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because I wish there was a way of fixing this without doing what we did. I wish there was a way that people could fix their dysphoria and and be able to continue life the way they set out to live that life because it's difficult. And as we get older, it's going to get even more difficult. I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, somebody said just right now, this person, Sass, you shouldn't start families before transitioning. And
hindsight is 2020. Yeah,
you're absolutely right,
yeah.
but every individual's different, and they approach their transition differently. And in my particular case, I wanted to not transition if I could help it. So I was doing everything that I could do to prevent it from happening. Like, hey, be the good role model, be a great example, become a dad, start a family, have kids. Maybe this will just, all sort itself out. And
Yeah.
just at the end of the day, everything will be hunky dory and fine. And, you find yourself later in life making decisions and stuff. And then one thing leads to another, and here you are.
Yeah, and hindsight's always 2020. Back in the day where things were not as in your face as they are now, it was a lot harder for people to make that move. And they would think twice because they knew you'd be more ostracized. Now it's like, come on, come on. They're making it really easy. And I say, please, buyer, beware. Just because it appears to be easy, it doesn't mean that's without cost and without pain and without discomfort.
I
Because
remember when I first started transitioning, I moved in with another trans woman who was basically a year into her transition in the first place, and this older trans woman that I had come into contact with, she watched some of our YouTube videos and stuff, and then she was saying, "Oh, you're doing everything wrong," because the first rule that I was told at the hospital and the counseling that I was getting was that two trans women should stay away from each other as much as possible. That trans individuals shouldn't be in contact because you are impairing your transition by being with another trans person, because that just creates a different kind of environment for you and doesn't allow you to fully transition. Because the idea back then in the 70s and 60s and stuff was to basically shed the past and to basically become your own individual, to basically go into some kind of a witness protection plan that would cut you off from other people, and that they wouldn't know who you were, and that you wouldn't have a past, and that they wouldn't, the friends that you had, they were encouraging you to disassociate from those people, that you are now on a new path. This is a extreme way of dealing with your dysphoria, and extreme measures are taken.
mhm,
And that meant that was a complete cutting off of everything, right? Family,
yeah.
friends, career choice, all of it. And she was telling me, no, 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 Lynna, you can't do that. You cannot interact with, that's like not good, not good. So
But yeah, sass, very true. I think transgender individuals should stay away from starting families, because it's not fair, to the spouse at the time, and you didn't know, you didn't back in when you got married, you didn't. There was probably not even a thought in your mind of transitioning. You just wanted to be a good person and do what you were
well, I
set
mean,
out to do.
transition was in the back of my mind ever since I was a kid, but the possibility of being able to
Yeah, it was
was
like
another
a
thing. Yeah,
dream,
it's like a dream someday. And even after I got married and stuff, I was like, oh gosh, that would be like the ultimate. But no, I can't, because now this and now that.
But now they're
And
making it
it's
too
like,
easy. Now it's like you don't even have to go through therapy. You don't even have to do anything. You just have to say that you are, and you go, and then yeah, here you are. It's like what? Yeah, they don't feel they have anything to lose if they could just say they are, and then all of a sudden they get their paperwork, and voila, you're now the different sex. And that's crazy. That's really it's. I believe that we need to work through our issues, and I can safely say that the majority, if not a very large percentage of individuals who identify as trans, we have issues that we need to really look at and not sweep them under the rug and believe that if we take hormones and alter ourselves, that everything is going to be hunky dory. Newsflash: it doesn't get hunky dory just because you transition. Actually, there's complications and more problems arise. And as you get older, those problems get even deeper. And then you can't silence your inner voice, because I'm sure that when you dream at night or when you're thinking, you can't silence that voice.
No,
That's our
no.
conscience speaking to us.
Yeah, no, it's basically like, hey, you had your sense of purpose. You wanna whine about your purposeless life right now? Well, look at the purpose you had before. I mean,
Yeah,
if you had purpose, you had five purposes. You had six purposes.
yeah,
Now you have your life. I hope you're happy with it.
yeah.
There's no way you could take back what you did. Be be able to be purposeful to the one person that you're with now. At the very least you could do that, and I guess that's the takeaway is that that I need to live my life as if that you're the purpose for me, right? Because the purpose that I initially had, I gave it up in order to pursue what I thought was what I wanted, and yeah, I mean, I've alleviated dysphoria to a certain degree, but at what cost?
Yeah, that's it. It's like,
You
okay,
know,
so now we do what we did.
it's like you take chemo and you get rid of the cancer, it goes into remission, but at what cost?
Yeah, and
You
then
know,
and then it might come back, and the majority
right?
of the time it comes back, and now you've like fried your nervous system, you fried your certain parts of your body, because it kills the bad, but it also kills the good. So we really got to think this through. And my opinion is, I do not promote this for anyone, because at first it appears like a great idea. I mean, when I first transitioned, I was on top of the world. I was in all the TV shows, tons of attention, great. Everything, like, looked in the mirror and it's like, yeah, wow, strong, all sorts of stuff. But as you get older, that strength starts to go away. Now I got a belly, and it's just, yeah. And like I
Seems
said,
like,
what?
well, go
Go ahead.
ahead.
There you go.
Go
No, it
ahead.
seems like what?
No, it just seems like, when you were married to a biological woman, that you had everything that you would ever want, that you had achieved the degree of transition that anyone would dream of, I mean,
My
you had
business.
a loving, doting wife, you had your business, you had your life, you had your success, you had, everything going for you, but
But it
it
wasn't
still
real,
wasn't
because it
it
wasn't
wasn't
real. I mean, I would sit there and go, I could never get my ex pregnant. It was just like, it didn't feel like legit. It didn't feel, and everybody was like, why are you not stealth? Why are you getting yourself out
Yeah,
there?
I asked you that back in the
Yeah,
day.
but like Roberto, the one reporter who interviewed me, and many other people that would interview me would ask me, "Why are you
Why are
exposing
you
your
out
here?
here?
Why
Yeah,
don't you just? Because you have the perfect life. I had a great business,
right.
like you said, a doting wife. I had all the money in the world.
Hmm.
Lived in a penthouse suite facing the ocean. I had it all.
Right.
Still wasn't happy, because I knew deep down inside that I'm just a trans guy. I'm not a real man. Lost my singing voice, lost a whole bunch of things. Yeah, I gained some things, but I lost a lot of things. And everything was based on was it a deck of cards or a house of cards? How was that?
Hmm.
When you
House
it
of
was cards,
Cards.
yeah. And just smoking mirrors. And you can live happily. Like, I lived pretty happy for the first maybe 7 years, you know? And then I started realizing, and I started looking at the so-called trans community, and I started seeing the issues, and I started interviewing people from all over the world.
Right.
And then I started seeing that everybody has the same issue. Everybody's like wanting this for happiness, but in the end, they weren't really happy. In the long run, I mean, when you really, because what is happiness? Happiness is being able to share your life with others, to make other people happy. Because if you're just basing self gratification, that's not happiness.
I mean, for me, it's like I was able to alleviate a degree of my dysphoria, but at what
I
cost,
know. I
right?
know. So let's see here. What did Madeline Renee say? Oh, besides, she says she wished she lived near us both.
Oh,
We would love to have,
yeah,
you
we
know,
love to have friends.
yeah. That's another thing. We stay away from people because it's like we don't want to sit there and tell everybody our story. And, some
Yeah,
people want to be like accepting, but, that deep down inside, they don't
yeah,
really get you.
yeah.
So we just kind of stick with
So,
ourselves. But we
yeah,
would love to have, close friends like that are trans like us. And
yeah.
so what else did she say?
I'm lucky and blessed to have my ex-wife as my friend. We are best friends and consider ourselves sisters, basically. We've known each other since 1991. Not everyone has this kind of relationship.
That's true. Most people lose,
Yeah,
the relationships that they started off. They lose friends. They lose their spouses because, you know,
yeah. I knew my ex since college in 1989, I think is when I met her. And I, I missed that friendship, because
yeah, I
that
can
was a
imagine.
connection that I had. And I mean, she's a mom to all the kids,
Yeah,
and it's really unfortunate that things happened the way they did, but I I got what I thought I wanted out of it, supposedly, right? But at the end, at what cost?
yeah. You
You
thing.
know, the
That's
cost was great. The
yeah.
cost It cost me everything to be who I am today. You know, and
And then you don't even
I
get
don't
to
even.
celebrate. Like,
We don't have Christmas. We
yeah,
don't have family. We don't have any
yeah,
connection with anyone. No immediate family. No extended family. There's not even a sympathizing um, lesbian sister
no,
or
I
a
don't.
sympathizing blood relative
No,
or
nobody,
anything.
nobody,
Nobody
nobody.
wants to touch our lives with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah,
They probably look at it from the outside like, oh, let's see what the freak show's doing.
yeah.
I mean, but other than that,
Yeah. So it's not all that it's made out to be, and I think the advocacy is ruining it even worse than it ever has. It's crazy. Just my advice to people is try to find another avenue to deal with your dysphoria. Going down this road may give you a little sense of relief, a little sense of happiness for a period of time, but as time progresses, you might think differently. And not to say that no one ever finds happiness. I'm sure there's somebody out there that could say, "Hey, I'm fully happy and I'm happier than I've ever been." And I say, "Great on you, man." It's like I'm glad,
well, I'm happy for Madeline
Yeah, yeah,
having that
yeah.
friendship with
Best
your
friends.
ex,
Yeah,
and being able to have that kind of a relationship with someone since 1991,
yeah.
and it's a rich experience to have. The memories I'm sure that you two have with each other and stuff are probably really cool. But there's many of us that will never ever have
Yeah,
that type
yeah.
of experience.
Yeah, and my concern is as we age, as we get older, that's like, whoa, how's that going to look? Going to the hospital for something or another, and then you go in there, and then disrobing or whatever, and even though we're at a much better place now than ever, it's still, you know,
I'm not even thinking about that because I don't want to imagine myself anywhere near a hospital. So
yeah,
I'm just like that that just would even add even
more
more
stress. Yeah, see, I'm just a
unnecessary,
heavy duty
undue
thinker,
stress.
and I, having been in the medical field for years, having worked with older people that were alone, and they weren't trans, they were just alone because their kids don't come and visit them often, and for whatever reason, I know that that's something that is painful.
Well, I mean, estrangement from your family can happen in a number of circumstances and stuff. I mean, if someone were to come out as gay or lesbian or whatever, or if there was a family issue that
Yeah.
arose and you had a controversy. And I mean, I have in-laws, or not in-laws. I have uncles and aunts that are have been fighting with each other for decades
Oh
about
yeah.
some little small issue, and they don't talk to each other ever, and they're not trans or
Right,
anything, you
but
know.
that's like the exception to the rule. It's like most people work out their family problems. I mean, as
It
much
doesn't
as
affect every
every single,
single person that
yeah,
you ever grew up with in your
yeah,
life.
yeah,
You know, I mean, when you lose, like, it's like you lose a part of your own history,
hmm,
or you lose your own
you
history.
do.
Like, like I don't have my yearbooks from high school. I don't have all my pictures from growing up. I don't have anything that I haven't had in the last 7 years.
Hmm,
Everything that I have is from now.
hmm,
From this past
hmm,
7 years of us being together. But any other memory, there's no favorite T-shirt
hmm,
from high school.
yeah,
There's no like old collection of cassettes or CDs.
hmm,
There's no old letters.
yeah. It's
There's
almost like
nothing. It's
another
like
life,
it's like another universe.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like when, dreaming or, like I dream a lot about my mom and my sister and my family. And it's like I haven't spoken to them since, 2000, my mom since 2019. And my sister, it's been over a year now, and yeah, it's hard, you try not to think about things, but,
But I'm very grateful that we have each
oh,
other
so am I, baby.
and that we're able to, grow old together
Well,
and to have
you've
this
been
life
my
that we have.
purpose. You from the moment that I met you in that ICU ward, that you couldn't move your arms and you could do anything. I stepped up and it just brought out in me something that I never knew I had, and I was taking care of you from that moment on. So you are my
And,
purpose.
and you've done a wonderful job of it too. I never don't feel loved by you, and I know that there's been many times when you haven't felt love from me. But I just want to let you know that I do love you very much, and we're all dealing with so much trauma. We're dealing with so much trauma in our lives that it's a hard road.
It is hard.
It's a hard road, and I would definitely say buyer beware. If you're going to walk down this road, um, please count all the costs, because if you don't consider the costs, you'll never know what you lost. You
Exactly.
know, um,
And once you go down this road, there's really no undoing. I mean, I know there's a lot
no,
of detransitioners out there doing a great job, and I commend all of you for doing that. But it's got to be hard because I know I tried it, and I just it wasn't for me. This is I can't live that other way. You know, it's just too much changes have taken place, and you know, but
plus it's like it's like you're a different person.
yeah,
One thing that is not really spoken of with regards to hormonal influence, taking exogenous hormones from to your body and making them a part of your daily existence and stuff, is that they do cause lots of changes in you emotionally and psychologically, to where you're not the same person that you were, you know, 10 years ago.
hmm,
I mean, I think that that's something that is overlooked a lot of times, is people don't realize how much psychologically these hormones do change you.
that's true. Like even when I detransitioned and I tried presenting as my female self, it was not even the same female self that I was. It's like I was recreating this new person in
Yeah,
me, and it's like my memories of me prior to transition is it's almost like it's another life,
yeah,
and the way I think, the way I feel, it's all very different. And most people don't realize that because these hormones are very strong, the synthetic hormones, especially testosterone, very strong. Does a number on your brain, does a number on everything. And although I've always been very masculine and very different from the regular female, almost 20 years of testosterone has done a massive number on me.
Yeah, and those are the things that long-term use of these types of hormones and synthetics and stuff, that they do cause these changes and stuff. And over the years, me taking estrogen has literally castrated me. So
Mm-hmm.
um, my function
Yep.
sexually is not anything like what I was biologically born as.
Mm-hmm.
So um, but these are things that you know that are rarely spoken of. These are things that you know you you look at, like pictures of your past and stuff, and you're going, wow, that's like a different person.
Yeah.
It's like that person. Like, I remember telling people that I was online with last year when we were apart from each other, and I would say, this caricature that Maritza's creating over there in Arizona, no matter how much they want that old Maritza to be, they that person's long gone.
Totally.
That
Totally.
person is no longer in existence anymore. So it's almost like this carcass of a person that you were trying to recreate was being formed, and it's like, it's sad, but that's kind of what these hormones do.
Yeah,
Is
especially
that
all those years. It's
yeah,
like I look at some of the detransitioners, that have only been on hormones for a couple of years or three. They're able to get back to themselves. They haven't had a hysterectomy. Their menses return, and it's different. But after 20 years on this, testosterone synthetic hormones, things change dramatically. And even like with estrogen, especially the injectable, you're talking about, your functionality down below, it goes completely, because when you are on the estrogen pill, there was still some function, but now with the injectable, it's
yeah.
like, I mean,
So Madeline
yeah.
says, I'm so sorry for the
Let me
losses
let me put it up there. Okay.
you both have endured. I still have my family, but we are not all that close. I've lost friends, but the love you two have, it's amazing.
We've gone through a lot, and we've both detransitioned at one time, and then we broke up. We've broken up, got divorced once, remarried, broke up again last year, and we got back together again. So we've been through a lot. It's been a difficult journey, but I love her with all my heart and soul, and she's my purpose. She's everything to me, and you know, I if I would do it all over again without just to have her in my life. You know.
I appreciate you and love you so much. I just think that, if there is a God up above and stuff, and saw two people that needed another, that put us together in the sense of, helping us to be able to function in life. I think it's a wonderful thing that we were able to meet,
Mm-hmm.
and if I had to do it all over again, I would definitely choose you, you know, and because it's it's something that um, transcends this reality, the connection that we both have with each other. It's like, I knew you from the moment I laid eyes on you. I knew that I had seen you or met you before. And for those of you that don't believe in a reincarnated life, or in other lives or anything like that, that's that deja vu moment
Mm-hmm.
that we both have, with each other, that we recognize each other's spirit,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what body we're contained in, that the spirit has met before, and that you know we can actually have two purposeless people can have a purpose in taking care of each other, and to hopefully help other people to consider the cost of what they're doing and what they're going to do or want to do.
Exactly. Exactly. And I hope that people realize that, that they uh, can save themselves some of the pain. And although sometimes you have to go through the pain to learn. You have to experience certain things in life to actually, you know, learn something, to
Well, I
understand.
mean, pain
As our biggest
is
teacher.
necessary because
Yeah.
like we were listening yesterday that if we didn't experience pain, we would just not know
Mhm.
how how to function
Yeah.
in life. We have to know what a pinch feels like in order to stop pinching someone
Sometimes,
else.
yeah.
I mean,
Or burning your
or
finger,
burning it.
feeling the heat of it. If you don't feel the
Oh
heat,
yeah,
yeah, kind of like this, making
yeah.
pizza without an oven. I mean, although she has one, but she thinks she's invisible and could just take pizza out without anything.
I thought I could play like that game with the doctor
Operation, yeah.
operation. Yeah.
So yeah, pain is our biggest teacher, definitely. But I would tell my higher self, okay, I know that you wanted to learn certain things, but do we have to go this far? Jeez, you know. Anyway, it's been two and a
Uh,
half hours, just about. That's a long time for not having spoken for a while.
yeah, I
But
hope that we've been able to,
yeah,
kind of give some kind of words of advice as a older trans couple.
yeah.
We don't claim to know it all or
Mm-mm.
anything like that, but por los golpes
Same, yeah.
se
Same,
enseñan.
yeah.
So
Through the
through the
hits, you learn, or through
yeah
the bumps, you
the
learn.
bruises you learn,
Yeah,
and we've learned a lot on the bruises that we've experienced, and the things that we've had to heal from.
exactly. It's been quite the journey. And looking around the world right now, we're all going through some kind of crazy journey.
Yeah,
We don't know what's going to
crazy
happen
world.
next. Very crazy world, very crazy world. But sometimes I feel that all the uneasiness that we have inside of us, we're creating outside of us. So I think we need to look within more. Understand that that's our biggest teacher is meditating and looking inward, um, and whatever it is that you believe in. I'm not an atheist. I believe that there's something higher than me. I can't follow the Christian teaching because it doesn't make sense to me, and that's for another show.
Mm.
But whatever it is you believe in, meditate, pray if that's what you're into, and try to find inner peace so that everything else follows through.
Here's a topic for another show, another time. Why is it that so many trans men and women come from Christian families?
Yeah, yeah. That and why is it that so many trans men and women really had this thing for Disney? Disney. I mean, there's just kind of like wondering, was there some sort of Disney programming there that
No.
and
I
why
grew up
is it?
in a place where I could see the Disney fireworks
Yeah,
every
and you
night.
used to go to Disney World
Used
all
to
the
go,
time.
I
You
used to
worked
work.
in
I worked
Disney.
there,
Yeah,
Disneyland.
because I just find there's a correlation with that and with being raised in a religious household. That that's like a big thing. But that's for another show. And
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
you didn't go to Disney for the rides. You went there for the feel.
yeah,
You went there because
yeah,
they called it the Disney magic.
yeah, the
Is what they
Disney
called it.
magic. Well, they did a lot of magic, that's for sure. Yeah, but that's for another show. We'll see. We'll try to maybe do a show maybe on Sundays. Not this long though. Gosh, 2 hours and 29 minutes. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope we didn't offend too many people. And you know, it's you cannot not offend people. I mean, people will get offended no matter what, especially this day and age.
Yeah, there's no way around.
Around it.
It's almost like we're being programmed to offend people, but this particular live stream was not meant to offend other people. It's just we're expressing our opinion. You may or may not agree with it. You have every right to feel that way, and we
Yeah.
would never suppress your rights to express yourself or to live your life or to be who you are or to believe what you want to believe.
Yeah.
But this is our live stream. This is the opinions that we have, and this
Mhm.
is what we're sharing.
Yeah. I take the time to thank Madeline, thank Sass, thank Fendrana, and what else?
Kuro,
Teen, Hakuro, and
Delaney.
Delaney. Thank you all for tuning in. And, we might just do this again next Sunday. Who knows? We'll see. And we'll
Sounds
probably
good.
try to find, because you've been reading a lot of really interesting things and just, food for thought of the so-called reality or lack of reality world that we're living in, and what's taking place here. Let's see, who do we have a new comment? Mariela says, I appreciate you two being so honest and open. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Mariela. Mariela, she lives here in Arizona.
Oh,
Mariela
okay.
is Mariela. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, thank you. And those that don't watch this live, feel free to leave your comments on the comment section. Subscribe, like the video.
Or
Yeah,
dislike.
or dislike, whatever.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, it's up to you. So, thanks once again, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah.
Love you guys, but remember to always love yourselves too. Bye bye. Take care.